I'm so excited. We have Craig Wiggins here from Craig Wiggins Coaching and Consulting. Craig has over 25 years of experience in the insurance industry. Back in '96, he opened his first agency with 0 clients, 0 customers, and since then has scaled his business to be one of the largest agencies in the entire country, 4 locations over 2 states. So Craig is here today to talk with you guys on the 3 secrets for scaling your agency, which he obviously knows a lot about. So thank you so much for being here, Craig. I am so excited to hear what you have to say.
I appreciate it, Kelsey, and thank you guys for joining us. I've got Brad Bearden. He's part of our team at CWC, and we're gonna present together and answer some questions. And I appreciate you joining us. We're gonna talk today about the 3 secrets to scaling. Are they all secrets? I don't know. Maybe some are, maybe some aren't. But we're gonna try to tell you some of the things that we feel are really important for you to take your business to that next level and to scale and to get to that 10, 20, 30, 50 million, whatever the number is that you're looking for. We're going to talk about the things today that are necessary to make that happen. Last week, we had some of our inner circle members in, which is our highest level coaching program. And this is what we talked about for 2 days. So we're going to try to jam as much information into this little session that we can. And it might go a little bit over. We might have a few more slides than we have time for, but that's okay. And then we'll be on here to answer whatever questions you guys have at the end. So I just want to jump right into it so we don't waste any time and get started. I think secret number 1, very obvious, and maybe for most people on the call, but we got to build an epic team. We have to have a team that is just, they can't be mediocre. They can't be average. They've got to be epic. We have to have people that are performing at a very, very high level and doing things the right way. And how we go about that is really important. How we create that and develop that structure is critical. When I first started hiring, I would just throw people in the deep end of the pool and hope they could swim, and didn't have any kind of process at all. No structure. Just if they didn't make it, it was on them. And that doesn't work very well. You got to create a vision. You got to create a vision for your agency in terms of what it is you're trying to accomplish. You've got to duplicate yourself. And I always use the 70% rule, which means if I can hire somebody to do the job that I'm doing 70% as well as I do it, I'm much better off to do that multiple times than to me do it by myself. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people to duplicate themselves and delegate work. That's tough because people want to do it their way and they want to make sure it's done the right way. But if you can get people doing it 70% or better, then you're going to be just fine. The other thing, you got to recruit. Constantly have to be recruiting. In this labor market especially, it's very, very tough. You got to uncover every rock that you can uncover. And we'll talk a little bit about that. You have to have ongoing specialization. So not just sales and service, but other positions that are created from sales and service, a sales assistant, admin assistants, a service manager, a sales manager, all these other types of roles that have been created all through the years. So ongoing specialization is really, really critical. So think about the way your agency is built today and the way you'd like it to look moving forward, and start filling those roles. Start working on filling the gaps of where you feel like is the most important spot to fill right now. How we do that is also very critical. The onboarding process, okay? And I'm going to kind of go fast through this, so hopefully if I go too fast, you can go back and watch it. You can reach out to us, and we'll be glad to answer questions that you have. Onboarding process is extremely important. This is probably when I work with agents around the country, this is probably the area where they make the most mistakes. I know I made a lot of mistakes with this. You have to create a sense of urgency with these new hires, okay? They can't come in thinking they've got 90 days to get up to speed. We need to get them up to speed right away. How do we do that? We need to have weekly goals from the very beginning. The very first week when they come here, they've got a goal of 10. They've got to write 10 policies, 10 items their very first week in order to maintain their position. And we start them off that way, thinking that, look, we got to get rolling. We don't have time to wait around. We don't have time to wait to get better. We need to start contributing now. And are they going to be an expert on everything? No. They're not going to know all the coverages. They're not going to know all the procedures, the systems. What we want to see is, can they develop business? Can they pick up the phone and talk to people and generate business? That's what we're looking for. And we got to make sure they can prove themselves on that before we go invest a lot of time and effort and money into other things. So weekly goals are really important. Monthly goals, okay? After week one, we got week 2, 3, and 4. All those are weekly goals. Then month 2, month 3, and beyond. So you got to have some goals in there. Don't just start people off and say, hey, do the best you can, or hope that they work out. That's not gonna bode very well for anybody. So we got to have goals, got to create a sense of urgency. We got to have some accountability. Okay, accountability is critical. That's where people make a ton of mistakes. They really don't know what to do, what to say, how to say things. Find out what someone's financial why is, what motivates them. Build a plan around that and hold them accountable to that for them. If you can help people accomplish what they want to accomplish, there's a really good chance they're going to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. So your accountability can be about what's important to them, right? About what they're trying to do with their life. Once you know that, then you can build a plan around that. And we like to use this pyramid right here. This is a great, way to illustrate what someone's going to have to do when they come aboard. So when we're talking to new hires, even existing hires, this is what we're working off of. It all starts at the very top with the production. Okay, if they've got 2 items, 2 policies, in a day, we're good. That's what we're looking for, is 2 every day is a minimum expectation, not a goal, but a minimum expectation. If they don't have the production, then we look for the quote activity. How many quotes did they do in that day? We're looking for 10. So if they don't have the production, we're looking for the 10 quotes. If they don't have the 10 quotes, then they got to make at least 80 phone calls. Okay. Because if they're doing the quotes and not getting the production, we can coach them on that. We can train, we can role play, we can talk through whatever it is that they're missing, right? If they don't have the quotes, then we look at the phone calls. If they're making the calls, they're not getting the quotes, we can do the same thing. We can train up on that and figure out what they need to do a little bit different, what the talk path needs to be. If they're not doing the calls, that's just effort. That's just their, ability to make some effort. So that's what we're looking for as a bare minimum. And this is what we show them when we first start talking to them during the interview. This is what's going to be expected. It's really important that you do this. If you don't, and you don't talk about it clearly and define what's going to be expected when they come aboard, you're going to find people are just going to kind of get by. They're going to do the least amount of work they need to do every day to get by. And you're going to wonder why 3 months later, 4 months later, they're not doing very well. We got to start them off on the right foot. So having that sense of urgency, having some accountability with goals, weekly goals, monthly goals around activity, as well as production, that will pay big dividends for you. No question about that. Now, the big thing going on today is recruiting, right? This is probably the toughest labor market that I've ever seen in 25 years. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And we can, talk about all the politics or whatever around that. It is what it is. It's tough to find people right now. So there's a lot of things that you need to be doing. Obviously, Indeed is a great resource for us. We use the resume search alerts. We've got a lot of training on our program around how to use Indeed. Indeed is just a great place to find people. And you don't necessarily have to find people that are in the insurance business. You can find people that are in other sales industries that you can bring over, to your agency. Social media is huge for us. Facebook, LinkedIn. There's a lot of things you can do to leverage your opportunity. You can create videos, have referral bonuses, signing bonuses, those types of things. So leveraging Facebook and LinkedIn, Facebook Messenger, those have been huge for us. And there's a company called Team Hired that does a lot of really good work finding people for you, setting up group interviews where you can identify 1 or 2 people in that group interview and bring them aboard. They do a fantastic job. If you need information on Team Hired, feel free to send me an email, craig@craigwigginscoaching.com, and I'll get you the information on that. So all those things are some very basic things that we do. Other things, staff referrals, people run with people that are like themselves, right? So if you've got great staff, chances are they know people that are very much like them. Put a referral reward out there for your team. We do $1,000. If they bring somebody aboard and we make that hire, we give them $1,000. Okay. Same thing on the Facebook message, on the LinkedIn. Everything that we do social, we also have that same bonus, $1,000. It's worth $1,000 to find somebody, especially in today's world. It's worth $1,000. Make sure your staff knows that. Also, be very active in your community. When you go to the restaurant, when you go to the store, right? When you're out and about, look for people who would be a good fit, especially if they're working nights, they're working weekends. Explain to them, hey, I might have a better opportunity for you, and you won't be down here on Thursday night or Friday night or Saturday afternoon. You'll be with your family doing what you want to do. So be out and about. I've done that through the years where it was my intent to go out and find people. I would spend 2 days a week and then Saturday afternoon just going out and into the community and looking for people. My operations manager today has been with me for 15 years. That's how I found him. He was in a photography studio taking pictures of a family with a crying baby and upselling them on another package. And I thought, man, that guy's doing a great job. And he's with me now. Been here 15 years. So we found him by being out and about and looking. The other thing that's really becoming popular and maybe a lot more accepted is remote. Finding people to work remote. If you're in an area where maybe your cost of living is really high and you're competing with other companies that have much higher salaries and maybe better comp opportunities, remote's is a good solution. You got to be good at hiring and training remotely. There's some issues that come with that. It's tougher. There's no question about it. But if you can find the right person, if they've got the right mix of experience and the right level of talent, and you're able to bring them up and develop them, that can be a fantastic solution for a lot of places where it's just really tough because you're competing with, other industries, other companies, or maybe just your area is just really, really tough from recruiting perspective. So think about remote. That might be a good way to get out and find some more people. The other thing that's critical is comp. Compensation. This is an area where a lot of people make mistakes. We've got a ton of content on our platform around compensation. Some very basic things. Think about what compensation does, right? It affects behavior, right? You have to have enough incentive for somebody to do what you want them to do. So a lot of times agencies will underpay overperformers and overpay underperformers because there's not enough of a gap there. The salary may be really high and they have small levels of commission. There's no tiering. So what we like to do on sales, salary plus commission for sure, and have a tiered approach with very high standards, meaning that it's not 20 or 30 a month, it's 100. My top agent, she'll write over 200 a month. She never would have got there had we stopped that comp plan at 80 or 90 or 100, right? And not that everybody's going to get there. Not everybody's going to get to 200. Not everybody's going to get to 100. But I want them to know that there's all these levels above wherever they are now. If your comp plan tops out at 40, then chances are that's probably all you're ever going to get. You're going to see people that feel like, hey, I've got where I need to be and I'm good. And they're going to stop, and they're not going to push themselves to move forward. So we want a tiered approach with very high standards. If you want a copy of our comp plan, again, email me and I'll be glad to send you, what we use internally for both sales and service. And you can take a look at that and, maybe apply that to your situation. Bonuses. A lot of people like to do annual bonuses. I don't like annual bonuses. I think annual bonuses are way too far out there. I want to bonus them now. I want them to be incentivized for what we're doing today, this week, this month. Okay. Participation bonuses have worked really well for us. Fast start bonuses. Just real quickly on those. Participation bonus would be, if you think about what you'd be willing to pay a vendor for a certain amount of production. If I was a vendor and I say, hey, I'll guarantee you, let's just say 100 policies this month, whatever you'd be willing to pay for that, just offer that amount up to your team and then pay it out based on their participation towards that goal, whatever the percentage of participation is. So if they did 30% of the 100, they do 30, then they get 30% of wherever the bonus amount is. And put a number out there, put a bonus amount out there that really gets their attention. That's worked extremely well for us. Fast start bonuses, offering something in the beginning of the month. A lot of times people completely exhaust their pipeline at the end of the month. And sometimes they'll take those first few days off and not really do what they need to be doing to make sure their pipeline is full. So we'll have a fast start bonus, something that is for the first 5 days, first 7 days of the month to really get them rolling and get them cranked up, to make sure they deliver for the whole month. So comp, we could do a whole hour on comp for sure. This is important. You got to get this part right. You can't be cheap, but you got to be correct. So you can't overpay, right? You got to have that balance there where you truly motivate people to do what you want them to do, right? And maybe that's a little bit of a science sometimes. Again, if you want help with that, reach out and I'll be glad to share with you what we use, in the agency for both sales and service, and you can take a look. The other thing that's really big in terms of scaling with your team is culture. You have to have good culture. Culture basically trumps everything. I would rather work with an agency that has great culture than one that has great processes. We can work on the processes. Culture, that's a little bit more difficult to fix, right? You got to have good culture. You got to have non-negotiables. So there's got to be things in your agency that people know that you're just not going to tolerate. Lying, cheating, stealing, falsified applications, gossip. Gossip is a big one. We make sure people know that's not tolerated. We don't tolerate those things. These are not things that you would call somebody in and write them up over. These are things you would fire somebody over. These are things that are non-negotiable. You need to have those in place. They need to know that these are important to you. And this is a part of the way your agency is run. A lot of times you'll attract people from other places once they find out that's the way you run your business. The other thing is toxic people have to go. And I've had them in my agency before where I felt like I'll out hire them. I'll hire more people, and once I get enough, then I'll get rid of that person. It doesn't work that way. They infect. They're like a cancer. They just cause so many problems. So once someone has told you who they really are, you need to believe them and you need to act on that. And when they're causing problems like that, and they're talking behind your back or gossiping about other people, whatever, when they're causing those internal issues, you got to get rid of those folks. They're just going to cause you so many problems. And yes, there may be some little short-term dip, maybe not as bad as you think. A lot of times it's not nearly as bad as what we think it's going to be when we get rid of a tenured person, or, someone has maybe been writing a lot of business, but they're causing all these other problems. Think about the long term. What's best for the next year, the next 5 years, not necessarily right now, and make decisions based on that. So when they're toxic, they got to get out. There's a great book called Radical Candor. I would encourage you to order that book, Radical Candor by Kim Scott. It will really help you, with what you need to do from a leadership perspective to manage your team and create this culture. How to challenge people professionally while you show that you care about them personally. Order that book and read it. It's a quick read, but it'll help you a lot. Training and development. Okay, this is really, really important. You've got to invest in your team. You got to invest in their time and what they're doing to get better. Your agency is probably the biggest asset you own. If it's not, it will be. And the people that are in there are going to drive the value of that asset. Okay. So every morning we start off with CWC videos. These are videos that are on our platform. They watch 2 or 3 of these videos. It takes 15, 20 minutes. They do it every single day. And they learn skills and learn how to handle situations and deal with people, talk past, whatever it may be. We have tons of content on there. And every day they're in there watching those videos every single day. Most of them are done by their peers. They're done by other staff in the agency, and they learn that way. And it's a fantastic way to start the day and have a consistent approach, to structure around your training. You also need to have weekly meetings, training meetings, not downloads. We meet with our sales team every Tuesday morning and our service team every Thursday morning. And the goal of that meeting is to talk about something where we can show some improvement. So we teach on it, role play on it, and hope at the end of that meeting, we feel like, okay, we've made some progress. Now they're better than they were when they started. It's not to bring them in there and talk about where we stand for the month, and have this raw sales session. It's really to get people better, to improve. Role playing is huge. You've got to do this. Even if you think maybe you're not the best role player in the world, that's okay. You need to role play with your team. They need that practice. They need to get those reps. You need to listen to what they're saying. You need to be able to apply what they're learning in the role play to when they deal with customers. This is really important. It's just like a football team. They've got to go out and practice. They can't just show up at the games every Saturday, right? We can't just show up and talk to our customers. We got to do things to prepare for that. So all this training, all this work is really critical. Recorded calls, got to listen to recorded calls. You got to find the time to listen to recorded calls and find areas of opportunity for people to get better. You're going to find, if we pull calls right now, even from some of your very best people, if you haven't done this in a while, you might be really surprised by what they're saying and how they say things and the way they close and the way they're asking for other business. Are they getting the whole household? Are they looking for life insurance? Are they asking for referrals? There's probably a lot of things in there that we can work on. So use that tool. The technology we have today, I wish we'd had that 20 years ago. The way we're able to get people up to speed quickly now and work on things and develop them, it's amazing. That's a huge part of what we do. You got to find the time to do it. Do it at night. Do it while you're driving in your car, whatever. You got to listen to calls. You got to sit down and meet with them on that. Next, we got to develop some leadership. Okay, we got to have some people in there that can help us. We can't do all this by ourselves. You're not going to scale and create a giant 20, 30, $50 million agency by yourself. You got to have other people. Okay, you got to have an integrator. You're probably the visionary. Most agency owners are the visionaries. You need an integrator. There's a great book out there called Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman. I'd go get that book. I'm not a big book guy. Okay. I didn't even graduate college. I'm not one of these educated people that's like, you got to read a book every week to be successful. But those 2 books I just mentioned, Radical Candor, Rocket Fuel, go get those books. Those books will really help you with your business. If you're an agency owner, go get those books. They will help you a lot. The other thing is when you're developing leaders, allow these people to make some mistakes. If they're in a sales manager role, let them lead a meeting. Let them hire somebody. Let them do some things that maybe are not exactly how it needs to be done, but they learn from that. That's how they're going to get better. Okay. Allow these people to make some mistakes. Don't jump in there and save them every time. Let them do some things where they'll learn. People learn more from bad situations than from good. So when they make a mistake, as long as they're not going to make some giant E&O error or some sort of liability issue, let them make some mistakes and learn from that. The other thing is really have a lot of communication. Meet with these people just like the rest of your team once a week. I like to meet with our leaders every week, either have a face-to-face or a call every single week and talk about what's going on and something that's on the calendar that they know that they've got an opportunity to talk, and to meet with you on. So look, staffing is a huge, huge part of what we do. Developing an epic team, building leaders, going out there and recruiting in your market, all those things are critical. And it never really gets easy, but I think it does get easier. There's no question about that. Brad, you got anything that you want to add to that whole part? Because I know we spent a lot of time with our Inner Circle members last week talking about this, but anything you want to add around building an epic team for the people that are on the call today?
Yeah, I feel like they're probably drinking from a fire hose right now.
I'm trying to get it all in. This is usually covered in like 3 days. We're trying to do it in an hour.
I know. It's great. No, I think, what is the end result of all this? Because it is a lot of information and it is a lot to implement, and it's not something that can be done over in a day or a week, right? It's something that you have to stair step and get yourself positioned to apply each one of these aspects of this. But what's the end result? Why do you do that? Why do you build an epic team? What is the end result? Well, look at Craig. He's a humble guy. He's had a lot of success, but what he didn't share with you at the beginning is, he didn't even pass the test, right? He didn't even pass the test. They qualified him as low potential twice, and yet he was able to build his agency to multiple locations, over 40 million in premium. And here's the secret. Here's the thing that I want you to take away from this is, over time he failed a lot and figured out what worked, and now he's teaching you that. And how much time, Craig, would you say that you as the owner actually spend working in your agency on a weekly basis?
Oh, today it's very, very little. You build the right team, you build the right people, right positions.
And that's the point that I want to make, is he maybe spends an hour or two of all the locations a week, maybe. And isn't that why you started your own agency? At the end of the day, like any entrepreneur on any level, the reason that you take the risk and you shoulder all the responsibility to build your own agency is because you desire a certain level of freedom in your life. There's not a single agency owner in America that says, hey, I'm signing up. My dream is to work 78 hours a week for the next 25 years. That's not it. Like there's a lot to comprehend here, and there's a lot to apply, but the end result is exactly why you started your agency. The end result is to be able to have an agency that only requires an hour or two of your time a week, if that also can produce 40 million a year in premium or more. That's what I want to take from this. I know it may sound like you're trying to drink from a fire hose or fire hydrant, but it's worth it. It's worth diving into the intricacies of this and applying it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I appreciate the kind words. Look, I think when you go through that process of building up people around you, where you're duplicating yourself, or you're delegating work, where you're developing leaders, people that are integrators, people that can help you carry out your vision over time, and it takes a while. It's not a 6-month project. It takes a while, but once you do that and you start to see some success with that and things start rolling, before you know it, you're no longer a salesperson or a manager or really even an agency owner. Now you're like a full-blown entrepreneur, and you have the time and the freedom to go do other things because you've got all these things in place. And it does take time, and it does take a lot of work and a lot of effort to get there, but it's worth it. There's no question about it. We all only have so much time. Time is our most valuable asset in terms of what we own, and if you're not maximizing that, I mean, what else is there? I don't want to work the rest of my life. I don't want to kill myself. I want to be able to enjoy my friends and family and all the things that we like to do. And we've got to put some work in to make that happen. So this is what it takes is duplication, delegation, creation of more and more opportunities along the way for your team. And eventually you get to the point where now it's like, man, I've got a machine that's rolling and doesn't require me to be there as much as I used to. And now you can do other things. You can diversify and get involved in other companies, those types of things. So it definitely has its payoff. You just got to put the work in, and it is a lot of work. There's no question about it. It's a lot of work. So
I'll add this: is like, does it take a long time? or can it take a long time? Yeah, it does. That's just the nature of the beast, right? However, it can take a really, really long time, or it can take a shorter amount of time. And I think my point is just like you have to invest in your team, you also have to invest in yourself. Because if Craig knew everything that he knew today about growing an agency, if he knew that in day one, it wouldn't have taken him near the amount of time that it took him to grow and have the amount of success that he's had, right? He had to fail a lot. He had to run into a whole lot of brick walls. He had to deal with a whole lot. There was one point in time where Craig fired everyone in his agency and started all over. Well, thankfully now Craig has run through those brick walls, and there's opportunities where you can invest in yourself and learn the lessons that he learned along the way. And it doesn't have to take nearly as long as it would take. Now, could you probably figure it out on your own? Yeah, there's probably a lot of smart people in this call. You probably could, but just because you could doesn't necessarily mean you should or you have to. There certainly is a shorter way of doing it, and it's just repeating the successful steps that other people have done before you.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. So that's secret number one, right? If we want to call that secret. What's secret number two? And this one is probably, again, it's kind of an obvious thing, but I want to go through it the way that we do it and the way we've done it, at least over the last maybe 15, 20 years. The first few years was nothing like this, and it's all about closing more business, mastering the one call close. Everybody likes to throw that around. Well, how do we get to one call close? What's the secret to that? And it's not that we do that every time. Okay, we might close the one call close might happen 30% of the time, right? But we go into every call as if that's going to happen. We're going to approach every call as if we're going to close this right now. And we do that by creating a sense of urgency, right? We're not just being transactional. We're not just putting the data in and giving a number and hoping that it's less. That's not our strategy. I did that in the beginning. That doesn't work very well. That's a very laborious, expensive process that's very frustrating, because if you're on this call, you're probably a captive. There might be some independents out there, and you got some options. If you're an independent, if you're captive, you got like one option, right? And you're not going to be the cheapest. There's always somebody that's going to be less. So having the strategy of just quoting and hoping doesn't work very well. So we got to create a sense of urgency. And the way we do that, your staff has got to appeal to the local agency segment and deliver on your value proposition. So when I say that, when I'm talking about the local agency segment, market segmentation, really quick. If you look at this graphic, it's going to show you, and this is pretty much true just about anywhere in the country. These numbers might be off a little bit in some areas, but most people, most markets are going to fit into this. There's about 20% of the people that need an independent. They got special needs, personal business, whatever. They need an independent. They choose an independent. That's who they are. Okay. And there's about 40% that are direct shoppers. It doesn't matter what you do or how you say it or what you say in a story, or none of that matters. If you're not less, they're not buying. Those are direct. Okay. Then you got about 40% that are local agency. They value advice. They value relationship. They will pay more when they see the value in that, right? Those are the people that we have to appeal to. Now we're going to run into a lot of direct shoppers because they shop more than anybody else. Okay. That's just part of who they are. And so we're going to have that happen. And your staff, they need to know that that's going to happen. Okay, because they're going to get a lot of no's. They're going to get a lot more no's than they get yeses. But we want to approach all of them as if they're in that local agency segment and try to deliver on that value proposition. Then when we get to the end, if we're higher, we have reason to be higher. And we'll walk through that in just a second, how we do that. So stop selling on price. Stop quoting apples to apples. Do not make your product a commodity. So many agents love to do that. They love to just, hey, I'm just going to quote them what they got, because if I do any better than what they have now, it's going to be more, and I'll never be able to compete. That's not true. What we want to do is we want to lead with liability 100% of the time. Okay, we want to lead with liability, higher liability limits, and an umbrella 100% of the time. Now, some people out there, we have workshops, we do events, and we talk with staff especially, and we ask them, does everybody need an umbrella? And some people will give us an example. Well, what about a 23-year-old guy that lives in an apartment? He doesn't need an umbrella. He doesn't have anything. Well, let's say there's two people get into an accident, right? I'm 23 years old. I'm in an apartment. I'm a single guy, right? Just got out of school, and I make 30 grand a year. And Brad is liquid, and he's worth 10 million. We both get into a wreck. We both cause damages. Everybody's got problems. They're at med-fly to the hospital, the burn center, whatever. The damages are $800,000. He strokes a check and goes on about his life. Doesn't like it. It stings a little bit, but his life doesn't really change. Me, I got to go to court. I get my wages garnished, right? I got to deal with all that stuff. I have no money to pay for any of it. And it follows me around through wage garnishments for the next 30 years. Which one of us really needed the umbrella more? Which one really needed that protection, right? That's the way we've got to approach this. We got to get our team to understand that. They got to buy into that fact that people need that protection, that they need this coverage, okay? And this is how we do it. And I'll let Brad kind of go through these questions really quickly, okay? This is at the point of the conversation after we've gathered what they have, after we've talked to them about, you know, building rapport and their family and all that. Now we know what we're going to be insuring, their house, their cars, their boat, their rental property, whatever. And then we're going to flip the switch a little bit. And now we're going to change the tone and we're going to go through this. And this is where we're going to sell. This is where we're going to sell the deal. This is where we're going to create the sense of urgency. This is where we're going to deliver our value proposition. And when we get to the end, when we finish all this up, now when we're higher, which we're going to be higher a lot of the times, now we have reasons to be higher. And then there's other things that we can do. There's other levers that we can pull, which we'll talk about in just a second. So Brad, why don't you kind of set this up a little bit and walk through this with everybody so they understand how this sounds and what little bit of time it actually takes when they're working with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's nothing else you get from this call, screenshot this. This is a script that will absolutely change the game for you. And let me preface it by saying this is not an opportunity to educate, to teach, or to argue about different policies or things in the insurance, world. This is something that you just want to ask and move on to the next question. So it is that, hey, Mrs. Jones, now let's talk about the most important part of your policy, right? You want to say it just that way. The most important part of your policy, you're getting their attention. Pause for a moment and ask them, what are your current liability limits? Now, a lot of people are going to say something along the lines of full coverage. No need to argue or educate. Say, okay, Mrs. Jones, well, even full coverage has its limits. What are yours? If you need to, look it up in the system, find out exactly what they are. But it's very important that you get a number, all right? And then you want to ask them, do you understand what those coverages mean? And some will say yes, some will say no. We know that the most people don't have a clue. The most people, only thing they know about their insurance is what they pay per month. But it doesn't matter. What they answer here is irrelevant. Don't use this as an opportunity to teach or educate. Just let them answer. And then you're going to ask them the question that asked them this way, a very important question. So how much, Mrs. Jones, do you carry on your umbrella policy? Now notice how we asked that. We insinuated that they have one. We're expecting them to have one. However, we all know that 98, 99% of the people that you get on the phone are not going to have one. Most won't even know what it is. But we're asking it in a way that plants doubt that what they have is not adequate or not what they should have. So, Mr. Jones, how much do you carry on your umbrella policy? They're going to answer that question again. No, don't take time to educate or argue or inform here. We won't stay away from insurance lingo. Just will accept their answer. Okay, and then we're going to ask a question. Well, Ms. Jones, when's the last time that you spoke to your agent about this? Now, again, we're insinuating that they're having a conversation with their current agent. And maybe it was 6 months ago. Maybe it was never, right? Maybe they just got it on an app. They've never spoken to one. Maybe it was yesterday. It doesn't really matter. We're just insinuating that they should be speaking to one, and that's important that they have. And then we're going to say, man, wow, I'm shocked. I'm concerned, Mr. Jones. And this needs to come across authentic, right? I'm shocked. I'm concerned. But let me tell you why, right? And then we're going to transition into a very simple story. Now, never use the word story. All we're going to say is, let me tell you why. But we're going to transition into an example that's going to educate them on everything they really need to know about their insurance. So, for example, well, I'm shocked, Mrs. Jones. I'm concerned. Let's say Mrs. Jones is a mother of 3 young kids. She's married to a husband, and they've got assets, got a home, got all this stuff. I'm shocked, Mrs. Jones. I really am. Let me tell you why. We had a client come in a couple of months ago, and she was bringing her children home from soccer practice. She pulled up to a stop sign, and one of her children needed a bottle of water, so she reached down, grabbed a bottle of water, and tried to hand it to him. When she did that, her foot slipped off the brake pedal. She rear-ended the car in front of her. That car rear-ended the car in front of them, and didn't look like a lot of damage, but it cost over $400,000 in damages. Now, with your current insurance, the most your insurance is going to cover is $100,000. So, Ms. Jones, let me ask you, how much would you have to write a check for? And ask the question just like that. Ask it, how much would you have to write a check for? People may not understand what am I liable for. People understand what they're going to have to write a check for, and make them do the math. So important that they do the math. Number one, you need to make certain that they're listening. Number two, you need to make certain that they understand that there's a huge gap here. And so they answer 300,000. That's right. Do you understand why I'm so concerned? Do you understand why I'm so concerned? Like, do you see, if you had to come up with $300,000 in a day, and if you couldn't, do you see how that would impact your family? You've got 3 young children to provide for. You and your husband work very hard to provide all these things, this lifestyle for your family. And all that can be put in jeopardy as a simple accident like I just described. But don't worry. Ms. Jones. I'm so happy we're talking today. You and your husband's going to be so happy that you take care of this, that you don't ever have to worry about this happening to your family today, because I'm going to fix it. And then we move right on into talking about deductibles. So it's very simple, right? Just follow the script. We're going to allow the story to educate. One of the biggest mistakes that agents make is when you get someone on the phone is you start trying to educate, or even worse, you try to argue with them about, is there really anything as full coverage? And you lose people in this insurance lingo. Guess what? Everyone understands a story, and you want to make the story very simple. Notice how quickly I told that story. It takes 15, 20 seconds. Just tell a story of a situation that's relatable to that person, right? Something that's very relatable. You don't want to kill nobody. As Craig would say, this isn't Game of Thrones. We don't want to cause $1 million or more of damages. People don't think they can do that. Make it very simple. Something they drop their phone on the floorboard, reach down to grab it, and they rear-ended somebody. And this, we know this happens every day. This isn't something made up. Like, this happens every day, and it genuinely could change someone's life. And you now you've done them a service. You've shown them that there's a problem that they didn't know they had, and you have set the stage to present to them the solution that they need.
Correct.
Hopefully that makes a little sense.
And look, this talk path, does it work on everybody? Nope, it doesn't. You're gonna find that you're still gonna get way more no's. You're gonna get a lot of no's. But when you run across somebody that does value what we do and values your advice and is looking for that value proposition, once you point this out to them, and they don't know, they have no idea what insurance, like Brad said, all they know is how much they pay, right? So you identify this, you create a sense of urgency. Now, when you get to the end, now, if it's higher, you have reasons to be higher, and which we'll talk about in just a second, you have leverage that you can pull. You have other things that you can do. So this is a formula that we started using probably over 20 years ago, when I was in a situation where we were extremely uncompetitive, and it was the only way that I could really write any business was to go above and beyond what they had and try to sell, on that method. And it worked. And through the years, we've revised the questions, and a lot of these questions are very specific to throw the agent under the bus they have now, to bring up the fact that they don't understand or they don't know. We don't want to go through this whole process and have them call their current company and raise their limits. We don't want that to happen. We want to do it in a way where now they feel really good about dealing with us, and they choose to go ahead and make that change because we pointed this out. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be that much different from what they're paying now. And there's a way we can frame that up. When I say that, somebody may think, well, we're a lot higher in this and that. There's a way we can say it where it doesn't really make it that much more expensive in terms of other things that they're paying money for, right? So we'll talk about that in a second. So you go through all this, you're still going to get some objections, right? That's still going to happen. And there's some things you can do to try to, make that a better situation for yourself. First of all, control the conversation. Teach your team to control the conversation. Just like when you go to the doctor, they control the conversation, right? We need to do the same thing. We need to look at ourselves. We're the professional. We're the one with the license. We're the one with the experience. Don't let the customer control the conversation or dictate with it. If you went to the doctor and say, hey, I was on WebMD last night, I already know what I need. I just need you to fill out this prescription for me. They'd laugh you out of the building, right? Why do we allow our staff to have customers control the conversation? Why are we allowing that to happen? We should not allow that to happen. We should teach our people to control the conversation, to give recommendations and advice. That's where you can set yourself apart. We can get off this call right now and call 10 different companies. Chances are none of them are going to give us any recommendations or give us any advice. They're just going to be very transactional, go through everything. Here's the price at the end, and we're done. Okay. So we want to give recommendations. We want to give advice. We want to use the story to paint the picture. Like Brad said, don't explain or argue or try to get in all the insurance lingo. Just tell the story. Let the story explain. Look, if this happened to you with your coverages, what would you do, right? And allow that to kind of be that aha moment. Some people get it, some people won't. We're going to get a lot more people to buy into it doing it that way than just quoting and hoping we can save them $8 a month on their car insurance. Okay. Then lastly, we got to have a sum to close. Okay. We can't just get to the end and say, hey, can I email this to you? Or how's that sound? Or what do you think? Or just nothing. I listen to calls all the time. They give the quote and they just sit there. There's no attempt to try to close. We've got to have a sum to close. So you're going to grow your agency faster and much more profitably by selling on value and not on price. And I know a lot of you may have heard that from your carrier, and maybe kind of like the popular saying or whatever amongst especially captives, right? You got to sell on value. It's true. If you're just going to try to sell on price, you're going to get beat up. Your staff's going to get beat up. Everybody's going to get frustrated. You're going to spend a lot of time and money buying leads, looking for that needle in the haystack. Instead, let's try to deliver on what we can deliver. We can't control the price. There's no coupons. There's no Black Friday. It is what it is. Let's focus on what we can control. The relationship, the advice, the recommendations, the coverages. That's what we can control. So that's what we want to focus our energy on. Now, still going to get some objections, right? How do we do that? How do we, when we get to the end and you're still higher, right? You go through all this, you told them, how bad the situation is going to be, but you get to the end and they still say, well, you're higher. What do we do? What does that process look like? I'm going to walk you through that really quick. First thing we're going to do is we're going to isolate the objection. Okay. We're going to isolate the objection. We're going to say just like this. Is there anything other than cost that has you concerned? Okay. Say just like that. I want to make sure that this is the only thing that's keeping us from moving forward, right? Is there anything other than cost has you concerned? This is where it's okay to ask about the price. Now, I never have any of my staff ask about price up front. I know some companies have talk past and like, other than price, what's got you shopping today? So they put the price right out there on the table. We're not going to say anything about it until we get here. Ask the difference because we're going to use that. Okay, so you say anything on the price got you concerned today? No, it's just the price. Okay, well, how much are we talking about? Right? I want to know what. Sometimes they'll go ahead and tell you. Sometimes they'll go ahead and offer it up. But if they don't, you need to ask. Okay. The next thing you need to do, you need to get them to agree that the policy that you built today is better than what they have right now. Okay. When you agree, the policy we discussed would protect your family better than what you have today. I'm going to confirm, right? So I'm going to isolate. I'm going to confirm. I got to get them to say yes to that. They say yes to that. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. If they don't agree, then I got to go back through the coverages and make sure that we're both on the same page, that this is better. So once I've isolated the objection, I know the difference. They agree that the protection is better. I'm going to use this. Some of you may have heard about this. Is sales 101, right? Feel, felt, found, right? I'm going to use feel, felt, found to overcome that objection. And it's going to go just like this. I understand how you feel. Many of my customers have felt the same way. What they have found. And then I go back to the close, right? So if the price, what does that look like? What does that sound like? I'm going to break the difference down daily in the close. That's why it's so important that I know what that amount is, right? I'm going to overcome the objection and I'm always going to go back to the close every single time. So I understand how you feel. Many of my customers have felt the same way. What they found with everything going on in the world today is definitely worth the peace of mind of their family for $3 a day. Now, which credit card would you like to use? So in that example, the difference was $100 a month, right? Instead of focusing on the 100, I'm going to break it down daily. I'm going to take the 100, break it down by 30 days. It's $3 a day. Feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Many of my customers have felt the same way. What they have found is worth $3 a day to protect their family. That's what I'm saying to overcome that objection. Then I go back to the close. Now, which credit card would you like to use, right? I'm going to try to overcome the price objection that way if I get it at the end. But what if that still doesn't work? Which it's not going to work every time, right? There's still going to be people give you pushback on it. I talked about levers a few minutes ago. And this is where if you do this right, if you train your team to do this correctly, you will have options at the end. So many times people are so focused on trying to get the price as low as they can get it. Then they get to the end and now they paint themselves in a corner because there's nothing else to do, right? So what are those levers? The first thing I can do is I can adjust the deductibles, right? So I go through feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Many of my customers have felt the same way. What they found is worth $3 a day to protect your family. And then Brad says, well, it's, it's still $100 a month, man. It's too much, right? They don't want to do it. I can adjust the deductible. I can go from $500 to $1,000 deductible. Maybe a package option if your company has package options. Something in the policy that you can change that really doesn't affect their life if something were to go wrong, right? It's not going to change your life to have a $1,000 deductible versus a $500, but it might reduce the premium a little bit. That's the first lever I can pull. Okay. What if that still doesn't work? The second thing, I can take the umbrella off, right? I could say, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's take the umbrella off. Let me help you out a little bit. We'll take the umbrella off and I give them that new price. Go back to the close, same thing, right? Still trying to overcome it that way. If that doesn't work, the liability limits. I started with 250, 500. Now I'm coming down to 100, 300. So I got that customer that came into the office or took the call, whatever. They got 5,100 limits. It's so easy for your staff to think, well, I just need to quote them 5,100. Because if I quote any higher than that, the price is going to be higher. They're never going to buy it. Then they get to the end and you're higher. And what do? You're the same price. You're the same coverage, rather. There's no difference. Why would they pay more? But if I take that person 5,100 and I quote 250, 500 and an umbrella, and I take them through that scenario as to why they're in a bad spot. When I get to the end, now I've got an opportunity. They might buy the whole thing. They might buy the umbrella, the 250, 500, take it all. They hate the carrier they have now, right? And they're very loyal and very thankful that you pointed this out. That may happen. But if they don't, you still have other things you can do. You can change the deductible. You can take the umbrella off. You can go from 250, 500 down to 100, 300. That's still better than what they came with you at 5,100, right? It's still a better situation. It still makes a lot more sense to do it that way than to try to quote exactly what they have today. All right. So these are the levers that we're pulling. This is how we sell every single day. And it always amazes staff, especially if they've just got started in our business. And because a lot of times they think nobody's going to pay it. Nobody's going to pay that extra money. But $3 a day, have you got a Starbucks in your town? Do you go by the Starbucks and the drive-thru is lined out into the street? People paying $8, $9, $10 for a cup of coffee, and they do it every day. They'll pay $10 for their coffee, but they won't pay $3 to protect their family. I think they will. What about these things, right? This is an iPhone, right? It's like $1,200 or whatever. I could go to Walmart and get a burner phone for $30 if I wanted to, but I don't. Why? Because I find value in this, right? What we have to do is we got to show these people value. We have to articulate the value, right? And we do it through the coverages and what would happen if something happened to them with what they have today. And we got to get them to buy into that. And even if they don't take it all, even if they don't take the umbrella and the 250, 500, it's fine. As long as my floor here is 100, 300. We don't go below 100, 300. We stand firm on that. Okay. So if someone comes to us at 2550, 5100, state minimum, whatever, if they leave here with a policy, they're going to get 100, 300. And we do that for very specific reasons. I don't want my name on policies that are less than that. Okay. But it also gives us a lot of credibility when we stand our ground on that. If you were to go to a doctor and they find out you got cancer and the options are chemo, radiation, or surgery, and you talk them into Tylenol, how much credibility does that doctor have? Probably not a lot, right? I don't want my people to be able to back down below something that I feel like is sufficient. 100, 300 that should be like the bare minimum, in today's world especially. So this is our process to close more, to create a sense of urgency, to get more people to buy, even though we're higher, versus just quoting and quoting and quoting and quoting and hoping that we can. Have you ever quoted somebody and you actually save money and they still won't switch? That happens, right? Why? Because they still didn't see the value. They didn't see a reason to switch over to you. So it's not always going to be about price anyways. We got to do things that really teach them, that educate them, that get them to understand that you have a much higher value than just inputting data. You got to give recommendations. You got to give advice. You got to show them why it's worth more to do business with you. Chances are, whichever company you represent, you're like the Ritz-Carlton of insurance, right? You're not the Holiday Inn Express. Your rooms are $500 a night. They're not $99. So we have to market that way. We've got to talk to people that way. We've got to make sure they understand what it is they're getting, right? So we got to sell them value. That's secret number 2. I'm sorry, go back to close every single time. I missed that last one. Secret number 3. All right, let's talk about this. Secret number 3 to me is we got to do more with what we already have. Okay. We got to do more with what we already have. Most of you that are on this call, you already got a book of business, right? You already have inbound service calls that are coming in every single day. And I know, we already do that. We already talk to people. Well, do we? If we listen to those calls, would it be 100%? Would it even be 50%? I don't know. I bet it wouldn't be. I bet we could pull those calls and listen to those calls, and you got some great people that smile on the phone, that do a fantastic job, but really all they're doing is taking care of what that person's calling about, and that's it. And there's nothing else being done. Every call is an opportunity. And think about it. Think about like in terms of the economics of it, right? Here we are. We've got somebody that has a relationship with you. has set aside time to call and talk to you. They're calling you. You're not having to call them and leave 165 messages and hope they call you back. They're calling you. And they've probably set aside more time than what's really required for you to do whatever it is they're calling about anyways, right? These are great opportunities. They're probably the best leads you're ever going to have, okay? Are we doing anything with them? Chances are we're probably not. Or if we are, we're not doing it the right way. So what's the right way to do it? How do we cross-sell these leads and do it the right way? We got to lead with a review. We have to earn the right to talk about the other line, and we got to have an assumptive quote process. So what do I mean by that? Someone calls in, they're trying to change their mortgagee clause on a homeowner's policy, right? Instead of just doing it and saying, hey, thank you, we'll send it to you, everything's good, and hang up the phone, when you get to the end of that, Brad calls in, changes the mortgagee clause. Brad, I got that taken care of. We're going to send that in the mortgage company. We're going to send you your documents. You know, and I just want to let you know, Brad, there's been a lot of claims recently. We've had a lot of claims in our area recently, a lot of storms. I want to make sure you have exactly what you need and that you understand your coverage. So let's just take a look real quick. And I just start going into a little mini review. I go through the dwelling, the personal property, loss of use, all that, right? I'm hoping to find something there I can give some advice on, some recommendations, have some value with this conversation, right? I'm earning the right, because when I get to the end, that's when I'm going to go over discounts. I'm going to go over all the discounts that he's got. I'm going to leave the last one. Oh, Brad, I see you don't have your cars insured with us. What kind of cars do you have? And I ask it just like that, right? Now, I've just spent 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 minutes with him going over his policy. I've earned the right to ask about the other line. I just use an assumptive phrase to get that quote. He's going to tell me probably 99% of the time what kind of cars he has. And I'm going to get an opportunity to quote that business. Now, a lot of times what we'll hear are people are going to lead with that. They're going to start the conversation off. Oh, hey, Brad, I see you don't have your car. So can I give you a quote on your car insurance? And 99% of the time, nah, I'm good. Y'all quoted me a while back, or I'm with another carrier, whatever. And they're done. And that's it. And it never happens. Teach your team to earn the right. Teach them to go into that mini review, to talk about it in those terms, right? That first of all, even if they don't get anything out of it, if they don't get the quote, customer's gonna feel a lot better doing business with you because you gave some value. You added something to the whole relationship where it just wasn't the transaction, right? But if you do it like that, when you get to the end, you have a much higher likelihood of getting that other line, or at least quoting that other line and having the opportunity to sell it. So try that. That's like the most basic thing that you can do with inbound service calls to drive more business without spending any more money at all. The other thing, asking for referrals. And this, again, we're going back to like sales 101, right? And a lot of people are like, all we got to do is just ask. Let's just ask everybody. Okay. And that's great. And we could teach you a talk path, like, tell me the 3 people you care the most about, right? We could do all that and everybody learn it and they'd be able to say it and everything work great. But chances are they're not going to do it. They're not going to say it. Why? Because they feel uncomfortable doing it. They don't want the rejection. They don't want to have to bring it up. They don't want to feel awkward about it. So here's a simple phrase you can teach your team that they can say 100% of the time, just like they got to ask for a VIN number, a license number, whatever other information they got to have. This is a simple thing they can say as they're finishing up that deal, right? Just got done with Brad, wrote his autos, his home, his umbrella, and then I'm going to finish up a very, very simple question. Brad, by the way, just curious, do you have any family in town? And I just ask it just like that, and then I stop. And why do I say that? Why would I say family? If you think about referrals, what's the most common relationship with those referrals you get? It's usually going to be family. So if I say that, right? If I say, Brad, do you have any family in town? He said, oh yeah, my dad lives here. You know what? You need to talk with him. He probably has no clue about his insurance either. I really like you to give him a call, right? He may go ahead and offer it up to me just by me prompting him with that simple question. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't though. Maybe he says, well, my dad lives here. Okay. And that's all he says. Well, that's great. And what you want to teach your team to do is replace the word referral with introduce. Well, hey, Brad, you know what? I really love you. Introduce me to your dad. Okay. Don't say referral. Don't say recommend, because now there's this implied, guarantee of quality, right? That they're now they're going to do a great job for you. You don't need to say that. I like you to introduce me to your dad. Do me a favor. Just text him. Let him know I'll be calling him to talk with him about his insurance the way I did with you, right? Teach your team that very simple process and watch them write 20, 30, 40, 50% more business than they do right now, as long as you hold them accountable to it. And that's the key, is they got to start doing it 100% of the time. That's a very simple way to do more with what you already have. And then another thing you can do, obviously, is referral partners. This is basically how I built my book. I started from scratch, got to around $10 million, basically working with referral partners. This is something I think in the future is going to become more and more important. And the people that hold themselves accountable to going out and developing these relationships, they're going to write a lot more business. Okay. And look, we could do a whole day on this. The number one thing you have to know about referral partners and establishing them is you got to become friends with them. You got to get their insurance, and then you got to become friends with them. And once you do that, you're much more likely to get a steady stream of referrals from them. There's a lots of different ways, to make that happen, to go out there and talk with them. And Brad's got one little idea. I'll let him explain that before we go to Q&A. But that's what you got to do. You got to build relationships with them. Like true, they don't care about your magnets and your bagels and your cupcake. They don't care about all that. What they care about is getting deals done. And they want to do it with people that they know, like, and trust. So you get out there, you get their business, you become friends with them, you socialize with them, you network with them through social media and all the other things going on in your community. And I know over the last year or so, that's been a little bit tougher, but things are starting to get back to normal. Make this a priority. Make it something where every week, you're going to go out and visit with a mortgage company, mortgage processor every single week, and do that, 52 weeks out of the year. Maybe take a few weeks off for vacation and the holidays. Fine. What if you did it 40 weeks out of the year? You had 40 legit meetings all throughout the year. How many of those people would you have relationships with? What if you got half of them, right? That'd be a significant way to boost production, in your agency. So those are the secrets, in my opinion, to what we need to do to scale, right? It's all about staffing. It's all about the way we sell, and it's all about doing more of what we have. And then there's all kinds of other things that we can put into that, right? And we can spend a lot of time, and we can do more webinars with QuoteVerse and you guys and talk more specifics. But those are the things to me that are the most important. Brad, before we go to Q&A, I know you have a really unique idea, or a cool way of getting your foot in the door, right? You want to talk about that for a second before we go to Q&A?
Yeah, referrals, centers of influence. First, what Craig said is they can be the most powerful lead source out there, but you have to be intentional about it. But how do you do that? Well, first you have to start the conversation. You got to get someone to be willing to meet you, willing to have a conversation with you, to have a cup of coffee, or to jump on a Zoom, whatever it may be, so you can start developing a relationship. One of the best things you can do is think outside the box and make someone laugh. Right? If someone's very first interaction with you is you making them chuckle, making them laugh, man, that's a good impression. If you follow it up with intent and by showing them value, serving their clients, making their life easier, and like Craig said, being their friend, you're going to get a lot out of that. So one way to start that conversation is go on Amazon. You can go do this right now and go order a big old silicone foot, right? Just a big old foot. Costs you like 15, 20 bucks. And you take that and you put it in a box and you handwrite a letter. You say, hey, Mr. Jones, and maybe, it's a mortgage lender, whatever it may be. It's a decision maker. Somebody can potentially send you a whole lot of business. And say, hey, Mr. Jones, this is Brad here. I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. I'd love 15 minutes of your time. And that's it. Here's my cell. All right. And watch what happens. You send that to them and package it up, handwrite, when you address it to them, handwrite the address on there. So it looks, like someone intended for that person to open it. They open it up. Number one, you mailed them a foot, right? They're going to laugh. They're going to get a good chuckle. They're going to show it a lot. Sometimes you'll see people post it on social media, like this person, and then you follow it up with a phone call, right? If you want to be real like sniperish about it, is put tracking on the package, so you know exactly when it got delivered. And 10, 15 minutes later, you pick up the phone, you call them like, hey, Mr. Jones, this is Brad. I'm that guy that just mailed you a foot. And guess what? They're going to take your call, man. They're going to appreciate the intentional effort that you put in just to try to get that relationship started. And from there, intention is just as important. You have to focus on building that relationship, serving them, serving their needs, and actually being their friend, right? And watch and see what happens from there.
Absolutely. And I know that may be kind of, a little bit out there. Stuff like that works. It
works.
It stands out. You got so many. Think about it. Think about this for those of you, they're still on this call. Think about all the vendors that come by your office, right? The glass people, the body shops, all those folks, right? And they come in the door and you cringe when you see them because here they come again, right? And you smile and you shake their hand and you have a little conversation, but you never build any relationship with them. You never send them any business. You never do anything. Why? Because they're always just coming in with their hand out. They're not doing anything of any value. They're not standing out. They're not trying to offer any help for you, right? So when you do something like that, you stand out a little bit. You go meet with them. You become their resource for everything when it comes to insurance. You become their friend. You try to educate them, help them with their marketing efforts, all the different things that they're trying to do with their business. You can do so much. And that's really what it's all about. That's how you get referrals. That's how you start, to gain traction in that area. And so many people, they're not doing that. They're so reliant on, all these other ways of doing business. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do those, but don't rely solely on that. Find out other ways, to broaden your lead generation, and you will definitely benefit from that. So we got any questions, Brad? We got anything in the chat or anything anybody wants to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly do. We have got, all right. So anonymous attendee, since you started from scratch, at what point did you begin to scale? Was it based on a certain income level or a certain policy amount?
That's a good question. Really from 0 to about 4.5 million, very, very difficult because there's not a lot of cash, right? And to just be like very transparent, I had no money. Okay, I had nothing. I had to do about $10,000 a month in life insurance commissions just to pay my bills for the first 3.5 years. Like Brad said, I scored low potential twice. They didn't want to hire me, but I was a very relentless person. I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to fail, right? So I sacrificed a lot of time and effort and energy doing $10,000 a month, to pay my bills, pay my staff and everything. Once I got to about $4.5–5 million and I had a lot more cash flow, that's when it became a lot easier to scale, to build these other positions and do those other things. So, the thing is, don't wait until you get there. Be intentional about what it takes to get there, right? And start have a patient sense of urgency. Patient that's going to take time, but have a sense of urgency about the little things that need to be done to make it happen, right? And start setting those goals for yourself and whatever it is that you need help with. And eventually you'll start to scale. And then once you get to that $4, $5, $6 million mark, now you've got a lot more cash to do other things, and just stick with it. And then once you get there, then you just pour some fuel on the fire and you really blow it up.
A deal. Another not as similar topic, but he would like this anonymous attendee, like you just share a little bit more about your early days when you had limited funding and it was only you working on the business. Any tips or strategies to share?
For me, I was very goal oriented in terms of what I needed to accomplish that day, right? So we talked about life insurance. I would not go home until I felt like I had made progress on at least one life application for that day. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, I may be there till 7 o'clock at night. Wouldn't leave. The other thing is I was very intentional about the mortgage officers. Okay. I knew back then, and to kind of give you a little context, our guidelines, if someone had one claim, one accident, one ticket in 5 years on auto or home, we couldn't write them. That was like for the first 2.5, 3 years when I started, right? The state plan was 1.8 cars a month and 0.9 homes a month. They weren't expecting a lot, right? Scratch, no renewals, nothing. So what do you do to fight through all that? Well, I had to sell life insurance to stay alive, but I started working with mortgage brokers because they were dealing with a lot of new home buyers, had good credit, didn't have any claims. And that's where I found a lot of traction. So I set goals around the life insurance and I set goals around my activity with the mortgage officers. Every week I had a meeting, right? Every week I had one group meeting, and I usually had several one-on-one meetings every single week. And I stuck to that, for months, really for the first 3 or 4 years. I mean, I just kept doing that and kept doing that. And some people didn't respond well. And sometimes I felt like it was a total flop and a total disaster, but I got better. I started building relationships, and all of a sudden things started to take off, but I would say that's the biggest thing. So many owners, and I work with them all the time. So many owners like to work on it instead of in it. And sometimes they need to be working in it. Sometimes they need to be Pete Rose. Some of you know Pete Rose. He played, he managed, and then he was also a player that managed. Sometimes that's what we got to do. So it's great to be the entrepreneur. It's great to be the owner, all that. Sometimes you got to do that other work too. And you can set examples for the people that you're hiring while you also accomplish the things that you need to grow. So I was very involved. I was very intentional. I was, very goal oriented, very driven to get where I wanted to go. And I broke it down like that. Instead of looking at a year, even a month, I looked at what I need to do today to get where I want to go, focus more on the process. And then over time that, that paid dividends.
Awesome. Do you offer umbrella as well as take PD up to the max? What if current liability limits do not qualify them for an umbrella at your firm?
Yeah, sometimes they're not going to qualify. Sometimes you got a broker. Sometimes it's not going to work out, and that's going to happen. What we always talk about is don't focus on the unicorn, right? There's going to be times where that's going to happen. There's going to be times when people come to you and they already got an umbrella. They already have a $5 million umbrella. Then what do you do? Okay. I mean, sometimes that's going to happen, right? Don't focus on that though. There's still plenty of people out there. The vast majority of people, look at your own book. What percentage of people in your own book have an umbrella? That's probably pretty close to the population, right? There's be more chances than not that they don't have that. They don't have the coverage they need. So start there and focus on that. And every once in a while, when you run into somebody that doesn't qualify or they already have it, just deal with it the best you can.
Tim says, my captive firm is making a big push for internet leads, a price market for sure. How do you sell value to these prospects?
Same way. We do the same. We don't treat anybody, regardless of what avenue they come in. We don't treat them any differently. Okay. People are still people. People still love their family. Are there going to be some people that are direct shoppers on the internet? Yes. You're going to run into more of those for sure than you would say that come through from a mortgage company. It just is what it is. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to the very basic fundamental thing. If I quote and I get to the end and I'm higher, do I have reasons to be higher? If I don't have reasons to be higher, I'm probably not going to get that deal, right? So if I know that that's going to be the majority of the time, why would I just try to quote apples to apples? Why would I try to quote what they have and then just pray? That's not a really good strategy. So we treat those people the same way. We get them on the phone. They come from internet lead, a live transfer, direct mail, whatever it is. We're still going to pivot over to our value prop. Our value prop is advice, recommendations, coverage, not price. That's just not how we're built. Now, there will be times where you go through these valleys, the pendulum kind of swings back and forth on price. And there may be some times you're really competitive. Great, blow it up then. But you need to teach your team and really need to embrace this philosophy that, look, for me to win consistently, I've got to deliver on value. And hopefully some of those people that I talk with, they're going to buy into this and they're going to understand it's worth the extra difference to protect their family. Not all of them, but I can get a lot more that way than just going at it as a commodity for sure.
Tim says, solo agent, 3 misfires on hiring, finish up year 2, need to crush the next 6 months to make numbers in our agency. Am I wasting time on internet leads?
Well, I mean, look, everybody's situation is a little bit different. I wouldn't say you're wasting time on internet leads. I mean, first of all, and we have a whole section on our platform around internet leads. With internet leads, you got to have processes. You got to be able to measure. You got to have your team trained how to handle those. With internet leads, you have so many people that are trying to reach out to that client at the same time, right? You got to be good at what you do. You can't just buy them and hope, hey, I'll just contact a few of them and we'll see what happens. You got to be very intentional with it. You need to build those processes in your agency for sure. And then that goes for anything, but especially those kind of things where you have a really high acquisition cost, and measure everything. That's something a lot of agents, and I did that for years. We just throw money out there and hope it works out. And we don't really measure. We need to measure what the actual acquisition cost is per policy. We need to know how many we're quoting. We need to know what zip codes are better than others. Once we get a handle on all those things, it's easier to fine tune it and make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. The ROI gets a lot better. And in addition to that, we got to teach our team how to deal with it, how to handle it. And maybe what it is some people get leads that others don't. Maybe the people that have demonstrated their ability to execute the way you want it done and do it the right way, maybe they participate in some of these, and someone else who doesn't, they don't get them. So there's a lot of different ways to look at that. But having process and structure in place where you know where things are coming from and you know what you're getting and from what vendor and what zip code and all the different filters that you have, that's important to me. And then your team's got to know what to do with them. When you start combining all that, then you'll know. Then you'll have real data around something. So, because I see these things on Facebook all the time. Well, what about this vendor? What about that one? What about these? It's not always going to be the vendor. It's going to be how are they processing what they're getting. It could be there's some issues there with filters. It could be some demographics. Could be something there. But if you don't really know, you don't know. So I would just encourage you to really measure everything and know where it's coming from, both from what you're selling and what you're quoting, and then work with your team on what they can do to close more.
Awesome. Last one, Tim mentioned that he missed the last part of the thing because he had a call come through. Hopefully you were able to write those policies, my friend. But that brings me, Craig just mentioned our platform. I want to bring that up real quick because we do have a special offer for you. And this is it. It's pretty straightforward. We try to give you basically the opportunity to drink from a fire hose today. But just as you know, there's so much more to learn throughout this. And it's difficult to do it on your own, right? It's difficult to have all the answers, to find all the answers, and to do all this on your own. But there is a proven track record of success. It's not just Craig Agency that he built from scratch to over 40 million in premium. It's the other thousands and thousands of agencies and over tens of thousands of agents that we work with across the nation that have proven that these systems and processes work. So what is basically what we want to give you is a shortcut. And we hardly going to charge you anything for it. And when I say a shortcut, I mean having access to every single process, every single document, every single training, not just for you, but your entire team. I mean, to have the ability to lean on us to train you, to train your team through videos and modules and documents and live training sessions, to have us do role-playing sessions with your team on a weekly basis, to have us to answer questions. What about new team members that you do hire? What about onboarding them? Have us help you onboard them. Have them help you bring them up to speed, to teach them the scripts that work across the nation to make certain they're role playing that, how to overcome education, how to overcome objections, and to consistently work with them. We have a strong community, and we work with all of our clients on this on a weekly basis. This is our passion. This is what Craig does full time now, because again, he doesn't have to work in his agency. So typically we charge $177 for this, for a monthly access. That's just not just for you, that's for you and your entire team to have complete access to the platform, to all the training materials, all the video. And what we decided to do today is to offer you access to that for $3, $3. Chances are you probably find $3 laying around in your car somewhere. But it's just an opportunity for us to prove to you that we really do enjoy this. We really can serve you, and we really can help you meet the goals that you have for yourself in all aspects. When it comes to hiring, when it comes to training your team, when it comes to developing leaders, when it comes to selling many more policies than you're selling now, and managing that adequately well. So the offer, I just dropped the link in the chat box. We'll email it to you as well. But go there. We'll leave it open for the next 24 hours. If you want to go, try us out for $3. If you enjoy it, if you feel like we have done a lot of good in adding value to you and your team, your agency, and your future, then it'll continue on a monthly basis for $177 a month. As long as you want it, you can cancel anytime for any reason, right? We just want to serve you as best that we can. And Craig gave you this, he did his absolute best to try to jam pack as much information as he could into this 1 hour. And very grateful for Kelsey for giving us the opportunity to share this information with you. But we'd love for you to just come check us out. It's $3 to invest in your agency. You'll never find a better ROI opportunity than that. There's literally nothing that you will, a problem, a challenge, a desire that you have in your agency that we can't help you overcome or achieve. So with that being said, Craig, thank you so much for your time. And Kelsey, thank you for having us.
We really appreciate it. And hopefully everybody got a little value out of today.
I'm sure they did. So much value you guys provided today. Thank you so much on behalf of Quote Wizard and all of our employees. We're just so appreciative of you guys coming today. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, hey, have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
You too.